can I get everyone's attention? So we're going to get ready to roll with some of the festivities. I know everybody, as well as I am, excited to have this guy talk about, Marcus, talking about blockchain and indie games. So a few housekeeping announcements. So my name's Steve Rosen, and this is Brock Gant, and we're the co-founders of TBE Trendsetters, Entrepreneurial Trendsetters. So it started out just a few things as an entrepreneurial networking group through Meetup. We wanted to do something unique and interesting, and we didn't want to just have a monthly or bi-weekly event at a bar and just people networking, trying to sell themselves. And then we also, so we said, all right, we want to get some guest speakers, we want to have this educational, and we didn't want to just roll people, one speaker through a couple speakers a month, just talking about their business and marketing themselves. We wanted to do something that was going to be A, educational, and B, kind of entertaining and interesting and audience engaging. So Brock and I, we came up with the with this talk show called TV Entrepreneurial Trendsetters. Before we get started, just want to give a shout out to Rosa and the Addict. Thank you for hosting us and having us in your home tonight. Great food, even better drinks. So, and then I think that's it. So, really excited. Yeah, I want definitely. Thanks for reminding me. My man Brock here to talk about our social media. He heads up all the social media for TV Trendsetters.
Yeah, so you can, as you can see, there are social media channels. What we like to do with our social media is not just, we don't want to just post out stuff and invite people to events. We want to actually have the people that show up at our events, the people that are in the entrepreneurial community, to share their expertise in a certain subject matter. So, you know, if you're selling hats or you're in sales and you know anything of value, we allow people to share on their blog articles, videos, whatever it is that you're interested in and that you want to share with people, because we want to curate relationships. We're not here just to, like Steve said, sell businesses or get you to come to our events because we want you to. We want you to actually get to know everybody here and share anything that you know that can help out other entrepreneurs with whatever they're going. So that's what we use our social media for. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Meetup, or on, we also have a talk show as well. So you can send in questions. Steve has an expertise in HR and recruiting. I have an expertise in social media marketing. So if you guys have any questions about any of those subjects, you can just send us a comment, or you can send us an email on our social media, and we'll get back to you on that. So.
And specific to small business and entrepreneurs, it's not usually the audience that calls in and stuff. It's people that are thinking about starting a business or starting a business, and marketing and HR. Though if you're growing your business, those are two components. So, all right. Well, I think is everybody ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's get started.
Okay. So this is our. For our Speaker of the Month series, and we were very, very fortunate to get this gentleman for August. Marcus Howard. He's, I don't know about you guys, but I'm very interested in indie gaming, blockchain. So we were very lucky to get him. So we're gonna get ready to go. Please help me give some love for Marcus. All right, Marcus, thanks for coming on the show here.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So I'm going to get rolling with some questions, but really I hope all you guys came with questions, because this isn't my meetup or Brock's meetup. This is our event to learn. So first of all, Mark, let's ProjectMQ. For those not familiar, tell us what that's doing and what that is.
Okay, it's a multimedia search engine for the world's best independent video game. So in the gaming industry, we refer to it as indie games, but just like regular video games like Super Mario Brothers 3. My identical twin brother and I got this for Christmas when we were 6, and we've been playing video games ever since.
Who doesn't love Mario?
So this inspired us to try to make our first game when we were in magnet school in 9th grade on our TI-83 graphing calculators. Our calculus teacher didn't appreciate that, so she deleted the game. And then fast forward, we graduated from college. We decided we were going to try to make our own game again. and recognized how saturated the market was. So ProjectMQ is a solution we needed both as indie developers trying to build an audience for our game, and as gamers looking for like novel, clever, unique, interactive experiences.
Awesome. So, when did you guys see marketing opportunity for ProjectMQ, and how have you helped that indie gaming developers trudge forward?
As soon as we couldn't launch our own game about 5 years ago, it's pretty drastic there, the situation. You can see the saturation. You'll see that indie developers make about 70% of the 120,000 plus games in the global market. They only make 2% of the global revenue. So it's dire.
So where did you see the opportunity to jump into it? I mean, what first kind of caught your eye that there's an opportunity here?
We just wanted to create the kind of platform that attracted us to other games. So we saw that as millennials, like we enjoyed watching and consuming media, so images, video, and we felt like that kind of concept with that content subject, video games, would appeal to other millennials. So again, we just simply built the solution we would use ourselves as individuals.
Oh, awesome. So what makes you guys stand out from other blockchain search engines? Well, first of all, for those of us, including me, talk to us about what blockchain is, and then kind of what makes you guys stand out.
Functionally, blockchain is like a database.
Okay.
The difference is that it's distributed, decentralized, and encrypted. So you use Facebook as an example. If you use your Facebook app and you try to connect with Facebook, and for whatever reason the Facebook server goes down, you can't access it from your phone because you have a client-server relationship. You make a call to the server, it brings data back to your client. Blockchain is a peer-to-peer network where every device on the network stores the data and the media, like all the information about the network is stored on each device. So it doesn't have that single point of failure. That gives you more reliability and scalability.
And so what is ProjectMQ doing in that space?
We're going to be using it, and we're still in early development with it, to impart trust in an untrusted network. So for us, we're using it for a distributed ID. So we'll have like third-party apps like Facebook. You'll need a Facebook account to create an account on our platform. That way, if we identify trolls or other toxic people, if we ban that user for whatever reason, again, they're disrupting our terms of service, they won't have the ability to get back into our community and poison it. We're focused on the integrity of the community, more building a high-quality community than a high quantity. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely. Interesting stuff. What other opportunities can blockchain be used for, besides search engine and the indie game industry? I mean, programming, development, what are the possibilities? Because this is the beginning stages of it, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Blockchain as a technology is only 9 years old. So you look at, the internet's 20 years old, the commercial internet is 20 years old. It's still very much in its infancy. You probably hear the word fintech, that's a buzzword, financial technologies. That's really where blockchain got its first opportunity. That's where most of the growth is right now. So banking and finance. But you can see it in supply chain, voting, everything from marriage licenses to car titles. Anything that can be stored as a transaction, blockchain, most things that can be stored on a ledger, blockchain will allow you to do securely. And a lot of people need to also understand that you can't use blockchain for everything. If you have a database and the database is working fine, use a database. But if you need that security and that trust, and then encryption, the distributed network, that's what blockchain is for.
Yeah, I'm just curious. So Bitcoin, you hear Bitcoin talk with blockchain, and when I first heard it, I thought it was one and the same, but it's not. So what is Bitcoin in the relationship with that?
Bitcoin is like the first commercial use or popular use of blockchain. Just like the internet is the technology and email was the first commercial use. 20 years later now, you may not understand how the internet works, but you know that it does work and it powers everything in our society. So you're going to see that same progression as communities look to create more security around their data. You think about Equifax that hacked last year, and more stewardship of the information. Again, think of Facebook, with them selling off the information without the user's consent. We want to empower the communities to control their own data.
Okay. So now with the gaming industry, what is blockchain going to be able to do to take the gaming industry even further than it is now?
I think the gaming industry would be the first place you see blockchain go quote unquote mainstream.
Okay.
Because again, the gaming industry has used digital currency and digital items for over 30 years. You play this game, you collect the little coins, you get 100 of them, you get an extra life. So gamers are used to and accustomed to that concept of digital currency. You don't have to teach them how to spend digital currencies. Potions, swords, rupees, whatever, that's digital currency. The only thing that blockchain or cryptocurrency is an encrypted version of digital currency. So to answer your question, you'll see it used for betting. There's a platform called Unicorn right now where you can do bets against online games. There's a platform called Ultra.
So like poker and stuff?
Like poker, right. You bet against the people playing the game. Whoever's going to win, you can earn cryptocurrency. There's a platform called Ultra. It's kind of like Amazon, but for video games. They want to give a higher revenue split to developers and let the developers build relationships directly with the users instead of the platform having to kind of facilitate that.
Wow, that's stuff. All right, so I'm going to stop hogging you in the questions. Anybody in the audience, please, questions?
Where do you find blockchain being able to kind of be individualized on an everyday uses? So like you said, to the gaming industry, it's cool. I need to see it become mainstream. But what should people be looking out for right now on being able to take ownership of their data in many different sectors of their lives? Because most people don't even realize every behavior thing that we do on the internet is being tracked through some form of data input and output. So how does it look like? How does that look on a everyday human scale, being able to kind of take back that ownership, leveraging blockchain?
I think retail opportunities are the next best opportunity. So you may have seen in the news last week, Starbucks announced that they're going to be leveraging blockchain where you can basically buy a cappuccino with the digital currency. People need a place to spend all of these digital currencies they've spent the last several years mining or trading. And we don't have a whole bunch of those opportunities right now. So the first people who can create like legitimate retail opportunities is where the technology is going to take off. Or anywhere where you need, again, that trusted network. So marriage licenses, deeds, legal contracts, all of that stuff could technically be done on the blockchain, and it makes it more secure for you as a user.
So does that mean, what does it mean in the sense of having a supply of people that even know how to build the blockchain? Is there some form of solution right now to kind of get the masses kind of quickly up to speed on even, obviously you have the era of learning how to develop. And now we're in the era of, people having to be able to build blockchain. Is there any solutions right now?
We're a little short on solutions right now. It's still very early. About 1% of the global population understands the difference between blockchain, the technology, and Bitcoin, the digital currency. But there's a company here in Tampa at Block Spaces. They're called Pocket Network. What they're building is a platform that lets you use an API, application programming interface, to make requests to do the kind of boilerplate stuff that most people don't have the technical expertise to do. So if you want to make a payment, they have basically a handful of commands that make that happen for you. As you see more of those tools, it'll be easier for non-technical people to build apps on blockchain. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Anybody else question? Right? Please, gentlemen.
With Torrent, which was a distributed database effectively, there was still a central registrar. Does blockchain have a central registrar, even though it's the same sort of thing?
Blockchain, it depends. There are different versions. You can have a completely public blockchain. There are some private blockchains where it's decentralized and distributed, but it's a specific number of computers or nodes. Bitcoin, as an example, it's completely distributed. No one owns the network. Did I answer your question?
I'm just saying, from a, how does one identify who's out there?
Every payment and transaction is public, and every payment and transaction has an address. So if you could combine the address with like IP information, you can kind of triangulate where people are, and you see that happening with like Silk Road, which is kind of a black market for drugs and other dark activities. The founder of Silk Road was arrested because they were able to track the location based on his transactions on the network, the Bitcoin network, plus his IP address. It's a lot less anonymous than people think it is.
So, question for someone as myself who has entry-level knowledge to all that, where are we, like, using Bitcoin or blockchain and not even realizing that I'm using it or seeing it at any level? Is it when I'm doing searches or anything? Just curious about that.
That's a tough question. It depends on how much innovation is happening in the space. It could be 5, maybe 10 years. Again, think back to the commercial internet. You know, it launched in 1996, and you see this exact same kind of trend where people were saying, "Oh, we don't need the internet," or "No, it's bad, it'll go away." And now, 20 years later, like no one can practically live without the internet.
Remember the dial-up?
I had dial-up. My parents.
That annoying noise.
My parents had dial-up, so whenever I wanted to play video games on the internet, they'd pick up the phone and place a phone call. And that's dial-up. That's dial-up, right? And that was early internet. And now we have fiber. You know, it's grown exponentially.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one that dated myself there. So, yeah, please.
We're seeing some pretty big players in the finance world heavily putting money into crypto, like Goldman, for example. And then you look at IBM, it's likely they sunk 180 or 225 million into looking at the technology. Why do you think players such as those with established technologies are looking into blockchain for the future?
Another excellent question, and I think it's because they're afraid of being disrupted. No one wants to be the next Blockbuster. For those of you who may not know, they had the opportunity to acquire Netflix, I think twice, at the very least once, and they thought that streaming media was a trend. And now there's one left in like Colorado or
Alaska.
Alaska, there we go. So, but while you see on the news people talking about the price dropping, and it has dropped even this week, companies like IBM are spending records amounts of money investing in blockchain, $160 million this year. If you look these financial institutions up, they're filing record patents as fast as they can click send, because they know it's the future of the infrastructure that everyone is using. So they want to get ahead of the curve instead of being left in the dust. Yes.
Okay, so like we can like if we put it on a smaller scale for entrepreneurs and small business owners, do you think that them building their own platforms on blockchain would be a smart move for them?
Yes, but I would caution you to just trying to throw blockchain at a solution or at a company. My brother and I actually disagree on whether or not we should be using blockchain, because he understands the potential of it, but it's become a buzzword. There's a company that added blockchain in their name, a tea company, and their stocks skyrocketed. Malcolm doesn't want all the hard work we've done the last 5 years to be kind of overshadowed by the fact that we're using blockchain.
Right.
Even though we filed a pending patent like 3 years ago, before we even knew what blockchain was, on a tokenized ecosystem for gaming. So you want to be careful to make sure it's the right solution. If you can use a database, use a database. If you need public, encrypted, distributed transactions, blockchain is the solution.
Right. What was your stats about indie game developers on how much they make out of the industry?
So they produce about 70% of the industry's games, but they only make about 2% of the global profit. It averages out to about less than $500 per year per developer.
And why is that? Like, what stops them from making their share?
Game discovery is broken. When you think about the news, you know, the stuff that you see is a result of what gets advertised to you.
Right.
And advertising is very expensive, especially TV ads.
Okay.
Most indie developers are basically startups, bootstrap. They have day jobs, they build video games on nights and weekends. They don't have marketing budgets for TV ads.
Okay.
So if you can't afford, you know, the 30-second spot for $2 million, you don't really have an option. Yeah. They're trying, and we're trying to kind of shift that paradigm, but it's a slow climb.
So when you say they make 70% of the games, does that mean we only play 10% of games that are developed? Right?
Give or take, that's about right.
Wow.
Have you heard of Gears of War?
Yes.
So Cliff Bleszinski he was on the Gears of War team, and that was a very successful series. They've done, I don't know, 6 or 7 of those, right? Or maybe 4 or 5 of them, several, right? He created his own studio and produced 2 indie games, and they were both commercial failures. He had to close down his studio. Someone with his pedigree wasn't able to survive as an indie studio in that environment. That's how bad it is.
So in the traditional entrepreneurship world, everybody is slowly starting to seek into taking ownership of day trading attention, right? What does that mean for the gaming industry? Why can't they kind of use that same kind of route to get in front of their potential audience, where you're talking about an omni-channel presence, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, and just directly going to where their audience is and living and following them around the internet?
Interesting question. And the issue is that the platforms that they use, that they need distribution on, are paid to win, right? If you think of Google Play, iTunes, they may have like featured editors, top picks, but everything else is basically AdWord and display ad driven. They just can't afford to purchase that attention that you talk about. That's the new currency, is attention. They can't buy it. There are some exceptions. You'll see people who are focusing on building communities, which works really well when it works. But most developers are so focused on their games, they don't understand how to do that. So another piece of what we're doing is educating them on the importance of the business side, specifically the marketing and community development.
Where do you see your company going in like a year? If you had it your way, right? Where do you see it in the year, and where do you see it in like 5 years?
Your way. My way.
I know
Brother's not here, so you can't.
Right.
but I just kind of want to see what your vision is for your company.
In a year, hopefully we have the ability to launch on multiple platforms. Right now we have a web app, so we're full stack web developers by trade, but we didn't have the time to build a mobile app. So right now we're focused on the web application. Ideally in a year's time, we'll have it on mobile devices, obviously computers, smart TVs, basically anything with a screen. 5 years from now, I'd like to redefine what it is to be a video game. I think so much of the mainstream media is pushing Halo and Grand Theft Auto, and those are popular and successful games. But video games are now being used to provide therapy, physical therapy, emotional rehabilitation. There's a whole range, training, right? There's so much more about video games than what you see on TV. So that's what we want, is to grow the community.
Let me just squeeze one question in. So, Google question. How does ProjectMQ, how you relating to search engines such as Google?
We think that Google is primarily a text-based search engine, and what we're doing is multimedia focused. So very heavy on images, videos like game trailers, music, and that's what we think sets us apart from traditional search engines.
So Google isn't into that market?
They do have media, but I think primarily they're based on text. Their monetization, their algorithms are all based on text matching.
I'm sorry, this seems like a question.
When I think about like where the gamification word was like super buzz at some point, and a lot of kind of sectors were leveraging gamification to kind of identify, human behavior. Where does that lie in the gaming world as far as like teaching other industries how to leverage gaming to kind of expand the possibilities in different industries? Because I know even for myself, when I was going through my MVP, understanding how can I control user behavior through gamification is that similar to like just everyday gaming, or is gamification kind of a separate entity that stands alone?
I think it's one and the same, and I think the gamification grew naturally out of the gaming industry because video games are addicting. And there's kind of a debate about that if they're maliciously addictive or just naturally addictive, or intentionally addictive versus accidentally. But you see gamification in apps because millennials play video games, or our generation and younger grew up with video games. It's very central to our life experience. but it's an effective way of getting tasks done. And I know of some developers who went from building games to gamification consultants. They work with non-gaming companies to apply those same gaming concepts to those apps.
Aren't they using some of those methods to help in teaching like elementary school kids in the classroom? Is that on there?
Yeah, if you've heard of Minecraft.
Absolutely.
Microsoft acquired it for $2.5 billion back in 2015. It technically started as an indie game, and now you actually see Minecraft in the classroom. Teachers are using it to teach everything from chemistry to architecture to programming, because that's what the kids grew up with. It's a seamless experience for them.
I have 2 young nieces and nephews, and they're always on that. They're so far ahead.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. If we could get more community support around gamification for social good, you see so much more there. Good.
Gentlemen.
How is your search engine going to compete with, I would say, your competitor would be Valve, aka Steam?
I get that question every time I talk about ProjectMQ, and the answer is we're not competing with Steam. We're actually driving them revenues and views. So they're the world's second largest e-commerce and distribution platform for PC games. Several other startups and even venture-backed companies have failed to replace Steam. So we said, there's no way that's ever going to work for us. So instead, what we're doing is integrating Steam's platform into our site. So we don't create our own user credentials. You log into our site with your Steam account. When you find a game on our site, we have Steam's purchase widget embedded into our site, so you can buy the game from Steam without leaving your site. Does that make sense? We're a complement to them instead of their competitor. Great question. Yes.
How do you monetize your platform? Are you doing it through ads, crowdsourcing? What are you doing there?
Initially, it's from ads. It's very similar to YouTube's model. So you can go to YouTube right now and use their ad-supported app for free. They also have a premium product called YouTube Red. You pay about $10 a month. There are no ads, and they have original content like the Game of Thrones or whatever that you see on Netflix and HBO. They have that same type of content. Netflix. Did I say Netflix already? Yeah. They have that same content in their own platform where they've invested in original content. So for us, that would be developer interviews, kind of the behind-the-scenes making of content that you see on Blu-ray DVDs.
Are gaming developers going to pay you as well to advertise at a lesser amount than they would have to in normal conventional routes of advertising?
They won't, because we're not going to charge them. We see that charging them for attention space on our platform will be contributing to the problem.
Sure.
So they will earn credits, some form of currency for their engagement on our platform, and then use that to get sponsored placement. So the more that they use our platform, the more advertising opportunities they earn for themselves.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So they got to compete for it.
They don't have to compete, they just have to engage. We don't want it to be kind of a dump all of your content and walk away and say, how come we're not getting sales? We want to cooperate with them. If they engage with us, in turn, we want to help promote their game. But again, even if they don't want to do that, they can still use our platform for free.
So it'll be use your space, engage, occur currency in your platform, use that currency to boost their placement, think of like Google AdWords, to say their pirate game would be top of the list.
Right.
Okay.
So we have some display ads. We already have advertising implemented into the site. So they would just earn a currency to purchase that premium inventory. Again, without using cash, which is one of the great things about digital currency, is that they can use this where they otherwise couldn't afford it if we asked them to pay it in cash. Yes?
How are you solving the discovery of your search engine?
We have some markers we've identified from industry data as well as social data, and right now it's a manual process through a partnership with James Madison University for the National Science Foundation to turn that manual process into like a semi-automated process using artificial intelligence. Did I answer your question?
Not really.
Can you ask it again?
how are you solving discovery in terms of you're trying to solve the discovery problem in terms of indie games, in terms of visibility across consumers? How are you trying to solve your search engine's discovery in terms of people getting visibility into your search engine?
Thank you for re-asking it. So word of mouth marketing is the most effective form of advertising. So using those markers we've identified, we're actually digitizing the word of mouth marketing process, so that if you found a cool game, you would naturally want to share it with your friends and family. We're digitizing that process to provide social discovery instead of advertising discovery. Does that make sense?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
I've got some.
Yes.
So we haven't talked about this yet. Growth hacking. What is it? How are you guys?
I define growth hacking as taking the scientific method and applying it to a system, whether that's an organization like a company or an application, to quantify and then optimize user acquisition, user engagement, and retention. So for example, using Twitter as a proof of concept, I analyze that platform to figure out ways to maximize our acquisition of users. Basically using hashtags and targeting and the low-cost content we push out on a daily basis to build that targeted audience that indie developers wanted.
So do you have an example of how it's proven successful on a game or for ProjectMQ?
So our audience is the example. That's the proof of concept that showed us we could apply that to our platform. And we've distilled that process down to 4 key strategies, and we've shared that on Imager. So I'll be more than happy to share that with you so you can share it with the attendees. But basically, figuring out a way to quantify whatever your goal is, and then using a scientific method to build a theory of what might make it improve towards your goal, and then optimizing that workflow.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm like growth hacking and all that. This is great education tonight.
Yeah, there's growth hacking can be anything from inbound sales funnels, trying to ask you a set of questionnaires to figure out what type of customer you are out of the group of products or services a company wants to offer, to SEO, search engine optimization. That's a type of growth hack. It's paid, but it helps you optimize acquiring your user.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So this morning before going into work, I caught a news story that no matter what you do outside of physically turning off your phone, that Google has a way in of getting into where you've been, hearing your conversations. There's no settings. What's your thoughts on that type of situation? Without getting you in trouble.
That doesn't surprise me. And again, it talks about the stewardship of data that most of these large corporations don't have. And the stewardship's almost at odds of their investors, right? The investors want them to make as much money as humanly possible at practically whatever cost. And that expense is your user's trust and user's data. One of the things I enjoy about blockchain is it's a shift saying, let's give the power back to the community so that the user can say, you do or do not have access to these pieces of information about my use on your platform. That way, the blockchain version of Google, that can't happen.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I actually don't mind it if I've been talking about something pops up on my, because honestly, I'm not enjoying commercials anymore. I forward right through. I mean, with all the streaming, you're barely seeing any commercials anymore. So, businesses have to do it. So, before I jump in anymore, please.
I don't know much about blockchain, but how hackable?
The technology that blockchain is built on has been virtually unhacked in the last 9 years since it was created. And it's because as a network grows larger, the expense for doing that type of hack becomes virtually impossible. In order to do that, you'd have to own 51% of the network and then recreate. The way blockchain works is every time there's a transaction, the next transaction builds on top of the previous transaction, and they're all linked. So let's say we had a payment technology in here, and we had 15 transactions, and then I was the 16th and you sent me $100. Then there was another 20 transactions. If you wanted to tell the room that I didn't send you that money, you would have to modify that transaction and then the following 20 transactions afterwards forever. Because you have to maintain that deceit across the power or against the power of the entire network. It's almost mathematically impossible.
How about what you just talked about, the guy going to jail for getting IP or something like that?
So that was unrelated. What he was doing was he built a black market for basically ordering like assassinations and drugs and pornography and everything else, the worst pieces of humanity. And that a lot of those activities are illegal, and they were hosted on his platform.
Oh, okay.
So
it wasn't anything blockchain.
He was using Bitcoin to pay for it because he thought it was untrackable. But that's not the case, and now he's in prison.
Okay.
So speaking of money, you made me think of something. So cryptocurrency, exactly how is it different from real money? And then, why would we want to use that over real money going forward?
As a caveat, I don't think that cryptocurrency replaces real money. And that being said, we have to rethink what real money is. The gold standard for the US dollar was dropped in 1971. We have over $20 trillion in debt. There's very few, if any, checks and balances on the Fed issuing more debt, which is what increases inflation. And depending on where you read, the US economy is expected to hit another recession/depression in the next 3 to 5 years. So 92% of money is already digital. It's not in practice much different than cryptocurrencies. The difference is that Bitcoin has a finite number of Bitcoins that will ever exist. So you can't create more Bitcoin. Once that limit is reached, no more of the Bitcoins will be created. You can't add inflation into Bitcoin. In that respect...
Well, that could cause another problem.
it could cause another problem.
Yeah.
And there are forks, and forks are when people look at a component of the code and say, how can we improve it? There are teams in place to improve how this digital currency works so that it can be scalable. You can't do that with the US dollar, just because it doesn't have those systems in place to improve over the course of time. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. So I'm paying through my Starbucks. I have the Starbucks app. I pay through my phone. It's cash and all. It's never touching my credit card. But is that a form of cryptocurrency, or is that a different form of?
It's a form of digital currency, and the only difference between digital currency and cryptocurrency is that cryptocurrency is encrypted and decentralized and distributed. Can I get a show of hands how many people use frequent flyer miles? That's a digital currency. This is almost essentially the exact same concept of cryptocurrency, except cryptocurrency is encrypted.
So would PayPal be a form of digital currency as well?
PayPal is a form of digital currency. If you're paying for anything other than a dollar bill, something physical, you're using digital currency.
Okay.
Which again is why the gaming industry is such a perfect growth sector for cryptocurrencies, because everything they do is digital. The product is digital, the service is digital, the items are digital.
Good question. On the cryptocurrency side of point, how is the cryptocurrency going to deal with private key guessing for the wallets? I do know of a team that actually is working on a project for private key guessing. They have able to acquire multiple wallet with cryptocurrency. They don't move out the money because they don't want to get into that part, but they contact the owner of the money because they actually got the private key, which basically make them owner of that money.
Right.
In the future, right now it's a little bit harder. I know they're working on it. They're being successful with some accounts, but as we move forward with cheaper performance computers, put it that way, what is going to be in place to protect those wallets? Because if I get your private key, I don't do money.
That's true.
That's the story right there.
So the encryption is based on, I believe, a 60-character private key, or the calculation of a 60-digit key. It's very expensive to do. You'll hear people say that like Bitcoin mining is no longer profitable because it takes so much power to do that. The bill that you get for mining that coin doesn't cover the money you made from mining the coin. So as we see people get like better access to guessing those keys, I would imagine people would make forks, which is evolving the code, to increase the level of encryption required to make a transaction, which makes it harder to do. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Yes, I know what you mean by making it harder, but you just make the guessing for more keys, which will make it slower, but it's harder. Yeah. Okay.
I think at the current level of encryption, unless you have a supercomputer, it takes something like...
You could never get there in your lifetime.
Yeah, I want to say it's like...
1 over 1 to the 2... Yes. 1 over 2 to the 264th.
It's virtually impossible. Thank you.
When you're doing the cracking part, guessing public and private at the same time, it happens more than you think. It's surprising how it can actually happen. The problem is, if you target my wallet, it will be almost impossible, as you guys have mentioned. But when you do it randomly, that's a big flaw in the system. Even myself, I own cryptocurrency, and I wonder how long before someone just empty it out because of that.
That's definitely a legitimate risk, and I think when you see vulnerabilities like that, people will issue patches, again, forks, updates to the code to address those issues. Again, that's something you can't do with the US dollar. There's counterfeit bills. That's a massive issue, right? Laundering, everything that you see, the same risk and problems you see in blockchain you see in the US dollar. The difference is we don't really have the technology in place to improve the US dollar, where we can add more features in the blockchain technology to make it less vulnerable.
Real money isn't secure.
Right. Any other questions? It's a great question.
I've got 2 more, and then I'll give it to the audience if there's any last one. So, I don't know if we covered this. Your search engine that's still under development. Do you have a timeline for when that's going to be launched?
So the search engine is live now. We launched in pre-alpha back in April, and we already have users in 25 countries. The site is invite only, like Facebook and Dropbox were when they started, mostly because of the cost to scale. At one point we had 500 indie games that we handpicked using our algorithm on our site. It made the site slow, and we got a huge bill in the mail from Microsoft. So what we're doing, we had to actually, to fix that problem, we had to delete all the games, fix some infrastructure designs, and now we're building back up. We're 75 of that original 500 games are now on the site. So it is live, but everybody can't access it yet because we're trying to build it in a scalable way where we can afford to grow it.
One last question. Your monetization method, is it going to be similar to Google AdWords?
It's more similar to YouTube. So again, you can use, if you log into our site now, you can use the ad-supported app for free. We have ads in there. For a monthly fee, we remove ads and give you that premium content we were talking about, like the making of Blu-ray DVD content related to game development.
Well, I don't have any more questions. Audience?
I have one question. What is the PayPal award? What is that really? What did that get you?
It got us a $10,000 prize. They also gave us a $4,500 stipend for some website UI improvements. So you go to our site right now, it's a little clunky, difficult to navigate. They brought in a web developer expert to come in and basically give us a new coat of paint. We also got a 12-month premium subscription to Shopify. So now we'll have a store where if we want to sell video game hats or shirts, or we're getting ready to announce a partnership with iHeartMedia where we're going to be building out their gaming events across the country in 150 plus markets. We'll be selling tickets to those events via the Shopify platform.
So they help you get some monetization and help you continue.
Right, they're helping us convert more web traffic to potential users on our wait list and monetize. If we had to build those same features ourselves, it would have taken us 12 months.
Gotcha.
We're going to get it in 4 weeks. Go ahead.
So I want to advertise on your platform. what kind of data collection are you taking for your users to make sure that I target my demographic correctly? And when would you start taking orders for the ad?
We're not quite there yet on our own internal solution. We're using a third-party provider because we needed something that was turnkey. So I'll have to get back to you once we have that ready.
Do that.
Yeah, thanks. All right. Yes.
What are, just your opinion, but what are the most impressive indie games out there right now? New ones.
The newest game just had a commercial launch last week. It's called Dead Cells. If you ever played like Castlevania, like that kind of retro style look with procedurally generated levels, that's excellent. There's another game called Mages of Australia. They did 150,000 units in 1 week. Personally, I'm playing a game called Dreadnought. It's kind of like battleships, but in space. And I'm playing it because it's free, which is one of the same reasons that Fortnite took off, right? You compare Fortnite to PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. This cost $50. It did. They dropped the price since then. And Fortnite is free. But I can recommend, if you give me a platform and a genre, I can probably recommend you a game. Other questions?
There was some discussion earlier about the word gamification, and I believe you had said that you had a desire to go to other companies and integrate what you're doing into companies' efforts for gamification, something like that. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
So, to clarify, I said that some developers are now moving into a consultant role. They'll go to, I don't know, Fortune 500, but other non-gaming companies and teach or implement those gamification concepts from their games into that company. What our goal is long-term is if we can solve discovery for indie games. We think the same problem exists for indie music, indie film, indie TV, book authors, and we'll be able to kind of provide discovery as a service where we go to a YouTube and say, your discovery sucks, but if you send us your content and your users, we can personalize recommendations much better than you can. Go ahead.
How can your platform help the indie gamers that want to get onto more of a console-based versus PC-based?
Another great question. So a lot of the games that we have, I would say about 85 to 90% of our games right now on the site are computer, PC. But we're seeing a trend of developers launching first on Steam, which is PC, and then porting their games to console. So we actually have console games, we have mobile games, and VR games on our site, but the vast majority are PC games because that's the largest opportunity for us right now. Ideally, we'd like to have thousands of games across all available platforms and genres. If you want to play a racing game on Xbox, we will recommend the best race indie games from around the world for Xbox in the racing genre. If it's horror on mobile, the best indie games from around the world in the horror genre on your mobile device. Yes.
So the indie console games on your site, if I go to it and find it, how do I play that game if I'm on, say, PlayStation 4, right?
We don't have that integration directly through PlayStation yet, so that's something we're still building. Again, the site is in pre-alpha, but ideally, let's say, again, that 12-month, where we want ProjectMQ to be, we want to have widgets for PC, so Steam, Xbox Live, Nintendo, Sony PlayStation, iTunes, Google Play, etc., etc. If you find the game on our site, we use those third-party integrations to let you buy the game without leaving our site. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, this is more tech related, so get you guys to work. You're back in Microsoft? Is that Azure?
Azure, that's right.
And so what was the architecture issue?
The architecture issue was that we were serving the media from Dropbox. So the developers were sending us the media to our Dropbox folder, and then we were sending it from Dropbox to our website. And there's bandwidth and storage associated with that. And I can't even remember the bill. Like 2.5 years ago, Malcolm and I sat down and was like, look, we can't afford this next month. We can afford it next month, but we can't afford it the month after that. So either we need to do something different or we need to shut it down. And so now Malcolm redesigned the structure. I can't speak specifically to what he did because there's only two of us, so I handle everything business related, he handles everything technical. But if you want to have that conversation with him, I'm sure he'll be glad to answer it for you. But he definitely made it less expensive and he made it faster. Any other questions? Go ahead.
would you use another backend platform like AWS or Google Cloud Platform?
Yes. Whoever's going to offer us a 12-month free subscription. So again, we're bootstrapping this with our full-time jobs, and outside of like groceries and gas and the light bill, every waking dollar, generally speaking, goes into ProjectMQ. So wherever we can get like a free trial of something, we're going to use it as much as we can get the value out of it. And the reason we chose Azure is because we got into the BizSpark program. So that gave us like 2 free years of the Azure platform. But we do have outstanding credits for Amazon's AWS. IBM has something called like Bluemix for another year. So for the next 2 years, we might be using first Amazon and then IBM, and then pay for it.
Have you gone to talk to any of those platforms to see if they can extend that credit? Like, since you are using their platform to pretty much do the back end for your search engine. So all the data collection, data mining, whatever it takes to be, it'll pretty much boost of using their service, and they can say, or promote you as well, saying, and ProjectMQ is using Google Cloud or AWS, and so on. I would say probably talk to them and see if they can give you more wiggle room than this first free 12 months.
And that's definitely a great opportunity. Thanks for that suggestion. And I think we tried to have that conversation with Microsoft. At the time, our site wasn't launched in pre-alpha, so they didn't see enough value to justify giving us those extra credits. But now that we're launched, and Microsoft happens to own Minecraft, which started indie, and they own Xbox, a platform for playing video games, and they have an indie-specific program called ID at Xbox, maybe that makes more sense now. Any other questions?
All right. Well, want to thank Marcus, Howard, ProjectMQ. Help us show some love. Thanks for coming to Trendsetters, and stay and hang out to network and more questions for Marcus.
There's a couple opportunities coming up. If you've heard of the Crypto Economy Summit, and Shane's not here, so I'll plug the event for him. It's a 2-day conference on all things blockchain. So the idea is that most blockchain conferences are very hype focused. This is very education focused for people who don't understand to get up to speed in 2 days. The other cool thing is I think on the 13th, they're having a 3-hour cruise, like a blockchain cruise. So it's Crypto Economy Summit. It's like crypto plus economy minus the E. Crypto Economy Summit.
When is it?
It's September 13th and 14th, so like 3 weeks.
Where is it?
Where is it? I'm sorry?
How do you register for it?
On their website, cryptoeconomysummit.com. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I've worked with the person who's organizing it, and I can gladly make introductions for anybody here.
It's in Tampa?
It's in Tampa, yeah. So they're bringing in thought leaders not just from around the country, but from around the world. It's going to be an excellent event.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.